A vow of eternal love shattered by a cold, vengeful cry. You swore to give me all. In an instant, Trinity event space turned into a slaughterhouse. Gwen Bradley, veiled in a white gown and black hat, her dark glasses masking a decade of festering rage, drew her. Revolver. 4 shots tore through the air. Bob Handor's skull and chest exploded in crimson ruin, his life coach dreams extinguished. Mary Banks, radiant in her off-white lace mermaid dress, she collapsed in a grotesque heap, her chest ripped open, her love of mere weeks snuffed out. The jazz trio's notes drowned in screams as peonies and lilies stood witness to carnage. Gwen, once a celebrated financial analyst, traded her orderly life for a gun, her journals screaming, "You're mine forever, Bob." Her mind warped by public humiliation. What festers in a heart scorned after 10 years? How does love twist into a blood-soaked obsession? This isn't just betrayal. It's a plunge into a gore-streaked nightmare. Why did Gwen unleash this slaughter? Peel back the layers of the Trinity Event Space Massacre and face the horrifying truth of a love that demanded death. The jazz trio's soulful notes wove a spell of joy, peonies and lilies blooming vibrantly at Trinity Event Space. Guests draped in elegance buzzed with anticipation, their eyes on the altar where love was to be sealed. Yet in the back row, a woman in a white gown and black hat, dark glasses masking her intent, clutched a .38 revolver. Gwen Bradley, 34, wasn't here to bless. She was here to curse. Her heart, scarred by public humiliation, beat for vengeance on March 6, 2022. Mary Banks, her off-white lace mermaid dress glowing, stepped forward, her warm caramel skin radiant. Bob Handor, 36, his short fade beard cut framing clean-shaven locks, met her gaze with a smile that stung Gwen's soul. Their love, sparked just 6 weeks after Bob ended his decade with Gwen, was a theft she couldn't forgive. As Mary's father gave her away, Gwen's fingers traced the gun, her mind replaying journals filled with "You're mine forever, Bob," a mantra of obsession born from betrayal. The minister spoke of eternal bonds, but Gwen's thoughts were of broken promises. Mary's vow, "You taught me how to love who I am," echoed, each word a dagger. Bob's response, praising Mary's liberation of his true self, was the final spark. Gwen rose, her gown a spectral shroud. "You swore to give me all," she declared, her voice a blade. The revolver roared, 4 shots shredding the air. Bob's head and chest burst in crimson, his body slumping. Mary's chest ripped open, her dress soaking red as she fell beside him. Screams drowned the jazz, guests scattering as peonies witnessed horror. Gwen stood, revolver limp, whispering, "Now no one has you." Security tackled her, but her calm was unshaken, her dark glasses glinting with purpose. The altar, once a beacon of hope, was a bloodied grave, the massacre a calculated act of retribution. Gwen's Ohio apartment held the clues, photos, forged notes, a mind unhinged by a stolen future. The carnage was just the beginning, a door to a chilling truth waiting to unfold. Shared dreams once anchored Gwen Bradley and Bob Handor, their Ohio apartment, a canvas of ambition. Gwen, a financial analyst, crafted their future with precision, her spreadsheets mapping a life of stability. Bob, a life coach and son of a church founder, brought warmth, his vision reshaping lives. Their decade together blended Gwen's order with Bob's charisma, their midtown home filled with chosen relics of their bond. But beneath the harmony, a fracture grew, unseen by Gwen's determined gaze. Gwen planned every milestone, engagement, a suburban home, her Ford Fusion carrying her to sites she scouted for their future. Bob's hesitation surfaced, his replies vague when she mentioned rings. Her sister Nia, a lawyer in their shared office building, sensed trouble, but Gwen brushed it off. "He's planning something big." The truth struck over dinner, Bob's voice heavy. "I'm trapped in a life I didn't choose." He left, their apartment gutted of his presence, Gwen's world shattered by his abrupt exit. Social media delivered the next blow. Bob, arm around Mary Banks, his new assistant, smiled in a photo captioned, "When you know, you know." Mary, with a counseling master's, had claimed Bob in weeks, their engagement announced 6 weeks after he left Gwen. The public humiliation seared Gwen, her pride wounded by the theft of her decade-long dream. Her suits grew loose, her auditing firm work faltered, and Nia's plea, "You've got to move on with your life, it's not healthy for you," met a vacant stare. Gwen's obsession ignited. Burner accounts tracked Bob and Mary's lives, her apartment a shrine of photos and journals. Forged notes on flowers. "You're mine forever, Bob," fed her delusion. The Trinity Event Space wedding loomed, a stage for her to reclaim her stolen dignity. The woman who once built a future now plotted its destruction, her rage a fire ready to consume all in its path. The flicker of a laptop screen illuminated Gwen Bradley's Ohio apartment, now a chaotic shrine to her unraveling. Photos of Bob Handor and Mary Banks plastered the walls, their smiling faces marked with dates and locations, each one a wound to Gwen's pride. Burner accounts on her phone buzzed with updates. Bob and Mary at a charity gala, their hands entwined, mocking the decade Gwen had invested. Her journals, scrawled with frantic comparisons of her past with Bob to his new life, revealed a mind no longer tethered to reason. "You're mine forever, Bob," read a forged note on a bouquet she'd sent herself, the delusion of reconciliation fueling her rage. Gwen's world shrank to this obsession. Her once polished suits hung loosely, her face gaunt from sleepless nights. At the auditing firm, her distracted errors drew sharp rebukes, her desk a mess of untouched reports. Nia Bradley, her sister and roommate, watched helplessly, her voice firm yet desperate. "You've got to move on with your life. It's not healthy for you." Gwen's hollow smile dismissed her, but her drives in the Ford Fusion grew purposeful, circling Bob's new apartment and Mary's office, her heart racing with the thrill of proximity. Public humiliation, she believed, demanded retribution, and Mary's rapid rise as Bob's fiancée was a theft she couldn't forgive. Social media became Gwen's battlefield. She memorized their routines, dinners at upscale bistros, walks in Ohio's parks, each post a fresh cut. Her apartment's walls grew denser, photos overlapping with notes. 6 weeks, and she gets my life? The flowers she sent herself, paired with cards in Bob's forged script, sat prominently, a twisted proof of a love that existed only in her mind. Colleagues whispered about her decline, but Gwen's focus sharpened on a single goal. The Trinity Event Space wedding loomed, a stage for her to reclaim her dignity. Late at night, her journal entries turned darker, her handwriting jagged. "They'll see what they took from me." The obsession wasn't just emotional, it was methodical. Gwen's financial analyst precision now served a lethal purpose. She studied Bob and Mary's social media for wedding details, noting guest lists and vendors. Her drives past the venue weren't random, they were reconnaissance, mapping every exit and entrance. The seed of vengeance had taken root, and Gwen's every action nurtured it. The woman who once planned a future with Bob now planned his end, her heart a furnace of betrayal. The path ahead was clear, and the cost of her rage was about to be paid in blood. A Tennessee gun shop's fluorescent lights buzzed as Gwen Bradley handed over cash, her .38 revolver, a compact promise of power. Ohio's laws were strict, but Tennessee's were a loophole she'd researched with her analyst's precision. At a nearby shooting range, the recoil jolted her arm, but each shot steadied her resolve. The focus of aiming silenced the chaos in her mind, her target practice, a grim rehearsal for the Trinity Event Space on March 6, 2022. Back in Ohio, Gwen's apartment held a new addition, a calendar with a red circle. "Humiliation ends," scrawled across the wedding date. Every detail was calculated. Gwen chose a white gown, its elegance a disguise, paired with a black hat and dark glasses to mask her identity. She drove her Ford Fusion along the route to the venue, timing traffic patterns, noting parking spots, her mind a map of vengeance. Social media posts from Mary's bridesmaids betrayed the ceremony's schedule, and Gwen memorized it, her fingers tracing the revolver's outline in her purse. Her journals, now feverish, declared, "They'll pay for stealing my life. The public humiliation of Bob's betrayal, a wound she'd cauterize with blood." By day, Gwen's facade crumbled. Her auditing firm issued a final warning, her desk buried under neglected files. Naya, sensing the shift, pressed her to seek help, but Gwen's eyes, sharp with purpose, silenced her. At night, she rehearsed her movements, slipping into the venue, blending with guests, the moment she'd rise. The white gown hung in her closet, a ghostly sentinel, while her black hat rested beside a mirror where she practiced her expression. Calm, unremarkable, deadly. The revolver, cleaned and loaded, waited in a locked drawer, its weight a comfort. Gwen's obsession had forged a new identity. The woman who once planned a decade with Bob now orchestrated his destruction, her heart hardened by the belief that Mary's love was a theft. She drove past the venue one final time, the peonies and lilies in her mind's eye already stained red. The jazz trio's melodies would be her signal, the vows her cue. The Trinity event space was no longer a place of celebration. It was a battlefield where Gwen would rewrite her story. The countdown had begun, and the price of her rage would be measured in lives. Jazz melodies curled through the air, weaving a spell of joy over Trinity event space on March 6, 2022. Peonies and lilies framed the altar, their vibrance a cruel irony against the violence to come. Guests settled into their seats, their laughter mingling with the music, oblivious to the woman in the white gown and black hat, her dark glasses concealing a storm of rage. Gwen Bradley's fingers grazed the .38 revolver in her purse, each note of the jazz trio ticking down to her moment of vengeance. The public humiliation of Bob Handor's betrayal had carved a hollow in her soul, and today she would fill it with blood. Mary Banks emerged, her off-white lace mermaid dress shimmering as she walked the aisle, her warm caramel skin radiant with love. Bob Handor, his short fade beard cut sharp against his clean-shaven locks, locked eyes with her, his smile a beacon of a new beginning. The crowd's murmurs of admiration masked Gwen's steady breaths, her mind replaying the journals that fueled her obsession. "You're mine forever, Bob." Mary's hiring as Bob's assistant, their whirlwind engagement after just 6 weeks, had stolen Gwen's decade-long dream, and the sting of that theft burned hotter than ever. The minister spoke of unity, but Gwen's focus was singular. Her Ford Fusion had traced this route countless times, her disguise perfected to blend with the crowd. As Mary began her vows, her voice clear and heartfelt, "You taught me how to love who I am." Gwen's grip tightened. Bob's response, his voice thick with emotion, praised Mary for freeing him from a life not his own. The words were a final betrayal, a public declaration that Gwen's love had been a cage. Her heart thundered, the revolver's weight a cold anchor. Then chaos erupted. Gwen stood, her gown a ghostly shroud. "You swore to give me all," she declared, her voice cutting through the jazz. The revolver flashed, and 4 shots shattered the air. Bob's head and chest exploded in crimson, his body collapsing in a lifeless heap. Mary's chest tore open, her lace dress drenched red as she fell beside him, their love snuffed out in a brutal instant. Screams drowned the music, guests scrambling as peonies wilted under the weight of horror. Gwen's dark glasses glinted, her face a mask of chilling resolve, the massacre a bloody testament to her wounded pride. Security lunged, wrenching the revolver from her hand, but Gwen stood unyielding, whispering, "Now no one has you." The altar, once a symbol of hope, was now a grave, and the path to understanding this carnage lay in the shadows of Gwen's mind. The horror had only begun to unfold, its roots deeper than the blood pooling at Trinity Event Space. Panic surged through Trinity Event Space, the jazz trio's instruments abandoned as screams replaced their melodies. The altar, stained with the blood of Bob Handor and Mary Banks, stood as a grim monument to Gwen Bradley's rage. Bob's head and chest, ravaged by 2 bullets, lay still beside Mary, her off-white lace dress a crimson ruin from her own fatal wounds. Guests cowered or fled, their finery trampled in the chaos, while security pinned Gwen to the ground, her white gown smeared with dirt, her black hat askew. Her whispered words, "Now no one has you," hung in the air, a chilling epitaph to her decade-long obsession. Police swarmed the venue, their radios crackling as they secured the scene. Gwen, her dark glasses lost in the struggle, stared blankly as handcuffs snapped around her wrists. The crowd's wails mingled with the grief of Bob's and Mary's families, their joy obliterated in moments. Paramedics rushed to the altar, but the truth was stark. Bob and Mary were gone, their love extinguished before their vows could bind them. The peonies and lilies, once vibrant, seemed to wilt under the weight of the tragedy, their beauty a cruel contrast to the carnage. Investigators turned to Gwen's Ohio apartment, where the depth of her fixation emerged. Walls plastered with photos of Bob and Mary, each marked with obsessive notes, revealed a mind consumed by public humiliation. Journals chronicled every detail of their lives, stolen from burner accounts that tracked their every move. Forged gifts, flowers with cards reading, "You're mine forever, Bob," sat on her dresser, a delusional altar to a love that never returned. A calendar, its pages counting down to the wedding, bore the chilling phrase, "Humiliation ends," a blueprint for the massacre that shocked Ohio. Nia Bradley, Gwen's sister, stood outside the apartment, her lawyer's composure shattered. She'd warned Gwen, pleaded for her to move on, but the signs, Gwen's neglected appearance, her aimless drives in the Ford Fusion, had been dismissed. Colleagues at the auditing firm recounted Gwen's decline, her once sharp focus buried under a haze of obsession. The revolver, legally purchased in Tennessee, was traced to a shooting range where Gwen had honed her deadly skill. Each piece of evidence painted a portrait of a woman whose love had twisted into a lethal vendetta, her heart hardened by the belief that Bob's new life was a theft of her own. The investigation's findings sent ripples through the community, the brutality of the act clashing with Gwen's polished past. The Trinity Event Space Massacre wasn't a crime of passion, it was a calculated act of retribution born from a decade of devotion turned to ash. As police cataloged the evidence, the weight of Gwen's actions settled, a prelude to a reckoning that would lay bare the cost of her rage. The truth was emerging, and its shadow promised to engulf all who sought it. A hushed tension gripped the Ohio courtroom, its wooden benches packed with grieving families and riveted onlookers. Gwen Bradley stood at the defendant's table, her white gown and black hat replaced by a stark prison jumpsuit, her face impassive as the weight of her actions loomed. The Trinity Event Space Massacre had left Bob Handor and Mary Banks dead, their blood-soaked altar a haunting image that fueled the prosecution's case. Gwen's .38 revolver had fired 4 shots, ending a love story and igniting a firestorm of public fascination. Now, the truth of her obsessive love would face judgment. The prosecution laid bare Gwen's calculated descent. Journals from her Ohio apartment, scrawled with, "You're mine forever, Bob," painted a portrait of a mind warped by public humiliation. Photos plastered on her walls, burner accounts tracking Bob and Mary's every move, and a calendar marked "Humiliation Ends" revealed a premeditated plan. The Tennessee gun purchase, shooting range logs, and her Ford Fusion's repeated routes to the venue were damning. This was no crime of passion, the prosecutor thundered. Gwen Bradley chose to slaughter 2 lives because her pride was wounded. The defense countered with a plea of psychological collapse. Dr. Sarah Benedict, a psychologist, testified, "For her, the breakup was like losing her entire identity." Gwen's decade with Bob, her meticulous plans shattered by his betrayal, had unmoored her, they argued. Yet Gwen's own words betrayed her. Taking the stand, her voice was flat, unrepentant. "He humiliated me, gave her the life we built. They deserved it." The courtroom froze, her lack of remorse a chilling echo of the blood she'd spilled. Witnesses added raw emotion. Marla Banks, Mary's mother, her voice breaking, faced Gwen. "You stole my world and took away my joy." Roland Handor, Bob's father and a revered church founder, spoke of his son's lost potential. He was reshaping lives, and you snuffed life out of him just because he said he's no longer interested in you. Each word landed like a blow, the pain of the massacre rippling through the room. Gwen's eyes remained fixed, her silence a wall against their grief. The evidence was overwhelming, Gwen's obsession a clear path to murder. The jury's deliberation was swift, their verdict a hammer strike. Guilty of double homicide. The courtroom held its breath as the gavel fell, but Gwen's face showed no flicker of emotion. The trial had peeled back the layers of her rage, exposing a heart that saw love as ownership. The final act of justice awaited, and its shadow promised to reveal the true cost of her vendetta. The judge's gavel echoed, sealing Gwen Bradley's fate in the Ohio courtroom. For the Trinity Event Space Massacre, she received 35 years in prison, parole possible after 30, a sentence that felt both heavy and hollow to those who mourned Bob Handor and Mary Banks. Gwen stood motionless, her prison jumpsuit a stark contrast to the white gown she'd worn to unleash her vengeance. The blood of Bob, his head and chest torn by bullets, and Mary, her lace dress a crimson ruin, lingered in the minds of all who witnessed the trial. Yet the sentence was only the beginning of a broader reckoning. Marla Banks' words haunted the courtroom, her grief a raw wound. You stole my world and took away my joy. Roland Handor's voice carried the weight of lost dreams, his son's work to reshape lives cut short by Gwen's rage. The massacre, born from a decade of obsessive love, twisted by public humiliation, sparked a national dialogue. Psychologists dissected Gwen's dissent, her journals, and forged notes. You're mine forever, Bob, a case study in how betrayal can forge a deadly path. Dr. Sarah Benedict's testimony resonated. For her, the breakup was like losing her entire identity. Gwen's Ohio apartment, once a shrine of fixation with photos and burner account logs, became evidence of a mind consumed. Her Ford Fusion's routes, her Tennessee revolver, her meticulous planning, all pointed to a woman who saw Bob's new life as a theft to be avenged. The trial exposed not just a crime, but a warning. Love, when possessive, can become a weapon. Communities grappled with the signs they'd missed. Gwen's withdrawal, her aimless drives, Nia's unheeded pleas for her to move on. The massacre's ripples reshaped lives. Bob's coaching legacy, meant to uplift Ohio's youth, ended in blood. Mary's counseling work, her warmth a beacon, was snuffed out before it could fully bloom. Their families faced empty futures, holidays marked by absence. Gwen, behind bars, became a symbol of obsession's cost, her story a cautionary tale etched in the nation's consciousness. The peonies and lilies of Trinity Event Space, though long cleared, seemed to whisper of a love that demanded death. As Gwen was led away, her silence spoke volumes. The courtroom emptied, but the weight of her actions lingered, a challenge to understand the line between heartbreak and havoc. The Trinity Event Space Massacre was more than a crime. It was a mirror reflecting the fragility of love and the devastation of a heart that refused to let go. Its legacy demanded vigilance, a call to see the unseen before another altar turned to ash. Every victim has a voice, and every story deserves to be heard. If this case moved you, please like, subscribe, and join me as we uncover the truths that should never be forgotten.